Welcome back to Path for Cloud, guys. So I hope you guys are enjoying my content on Docker Basic series. So today it's our uh, video number 5 on Docker networks, right? So today we will gonna explain how the Docker network works, what kind of networks we have in Docker, and if you want to create your custom network, then how we can achieve the same thing, right? Okay, so let's start with the Docker network. What I'm gonna do is I'll explain one by one. Okay, so by default we have three types of network which Docker create the moment you install the Docker, right? So it will have the three types of network. The default network it's gonna use is the bridge network. Apart from that, there is one network called host and there is none. So let's talk about the none first. So none is something as the name specifies, right? Like if you are attaching your container to this network none, right? So your container will not get IP. You cannot communicate whether you're trying to connect internally or externally. You will not be able to connect with the container which is attached to none network. Okay. Host network is something like you are directly trying to publish your port, right? Publish your host port. Let's say we will see one example of Nginx, right? Where I will just attach that Nginx container to host and port number 80, and then we'll see that how it will be working. But post that, what will happen is you will not be able to run any service on port 80 because you are already published a service on host port, right? Not on container port. All right. And bridge network is something that which will get the internal network, right? So let me go to the VM. So lab we are using on AWS. We have the same VM running on Ubuntu, and we have Docker already installed. So here you can see that I am listing the current network, right? Docker network ls. So here you can see the first network name is bridge, which is used again a driver called bridge. We have host, it is host, and we have none. That for none, obviously there is no driver, so it is showing as a null, right? And apart from that, I think there are a few more drivers we have. Let me show you. I think we can get this information somewhere. Docker network info. Okay, here you go. You can see that bridge, host, and null we already discussed, right? Apart from that, we have the IP VLAN, right? IP VLAN is something like where you want to connect a different multiple containers running on different Docker host, right? Where we will use this IP VLAN. This is something that we can discuss in our Docker Advanced series, okay? And the Mac VLAN is something that sometimes what happens is due to some legacy applications or something, your application expected to be intended as connected to the physical network, right? So that Mac VLAN is something that where we will connect like where we pretend that container to be connected directly on the physical network. So that is a two different. And overlay is something that where we when we learn about the orchestration, right? So overlay network usually created by the Docker Swarm cluster when you install or initialize your Docker Swarm, right? So obviously it will gonna create a overlay network on the top of your Docker host. But in this video, we'll scope only bridge, host, and none network. All right. Okay, so let's start with the none first, right? So you can see we have the none network. So what I will do is I will just create one container called run-itd. I will name it as a none only. Okay. And if you want, by default, when you create a container, right? So it will automatically attach to the bridge. As I mentioned, bridge is a default network, right? But if you want to connect your container to a different network, right? Either to host none or maybe the fourth one which we're gonna discuss is custom network, right? So then you need to explicitly define here dash dash network equal to none. Okay. So I will say Ubuntu. So it will try to find the image as we discussed in previous. It will not find, so obviously it will gonna fetch it from the Docker Hub.io. All right. So here you can see that we have the container running. Let's inspect. Okay. Inspect. The name is none. Okay. So the last part you can see inspect is something where you can see the all information about your Docker, right? Like what is the volumes defined, what is the log path, right? What is the container? Is there any argument you have set, what is the image it is using. I mean, all kind of insight information you can get with the Docker inspect command. Okay, so this is, I think, new command which we haven't discussed yet, but you can see that it is using the Ubuntu image network settings. You can see, okay, and here you can see that network is none. That's what we have connected it to, and we don't have any IP, no MAC address, nothing, or everything is null, right? So there is no way that you can connect this container from internally or externally. All right. So next, what I will take is I will run one more container. Let's say this time I will run Nginx. Okay. Name equal to web, and I will connect it to host. All right. And we will say Nginx. Wait, I think we haven't published the port here. So what I will do is I will just say container update hyphen p 80 colon 80, and I will say name. Okay, hyphen p it is not, maybe let me see what is the update option here. Okay, port I think we cannot assign with this. We can update with the CPU share, CPU, the memory and everything, but I think the port is not supported. Anyways, what I will do is I will just remove this container. Okay, rm hyphen f, will say web. So we have removed this container. I will run it again, and this time I will publish the port. See guys, I'm not using any kind of editing or something, right? Like what I am doing live. If I'm getting some error or I'm getting some stuck, right? I'm doing the troubleshooting on the screen only, right? I can do this in stop recording and do that. No, I'm not doing that. I'm just doing on the live, right? So now we can see our container is ready. So what I will do is, okay, now if we see Docker inspect web, right? So this time you can see it is connected to host, right? So obviously host will not give any IP because we are not assigning any IP, right? So it will use the same host and same uh, port, right? Which we have given here. So I will go to the EC2 dashboard. I will copy the public IP. I already assigned opened the port 80 for this machine. And let's see if we can connect this. You can see welcome to Nginx, right? And if I stop this container, Docker stop web. All right, you can see it's no more running. And let me refresh. So it is. So this time what we are doing is we are publishing our server, right? Like directly on the host network. If I'll start this again, it will again listening, and you will have the home page, right? Let me reload, and you can see that again it came. All right, so this is a host network. But now if you try to do one more thing, I will show you. If you try to do launch one more container on this, right? And if you see that container was exited. Why? Because we run the same command, right? Docker run I just name I have given web1, right? So let's see what happened to this. So if you try to see, it is saying that 000 field address already in use, right? This is the thing we have discussed here. Like if you are using a host network and if you are publishing your application on port 80, then you cannot publish this same port for other services because it is already in use. All right. So that is why we cannot do it. The last one is bridge network, right? So what happen is when you run install a Docker, right? So Docker will create a internal network called bridge with this CIDR range, right? So whatever the container we will create by default, they will get the IP from this subnet. Let's do, I will create Ubuntu container again, okay? I will name it, let's say one, okay? Just do one. And I will not attach specify the network this time. Directly I will say Ubuntu, okay? And I will create one more because I will just want to show one more thing. But just to be sure, we have one and two, both container running, right? Let's inspect one of the container. This time you can see that network bridge. If you remember, right, in the last command, when we are running our container, we did not give the network flag, and by default it is attached to the bridge network, right? And the IP address you can see it is getting the same, right? If I show you, mm, I think network disconnected. Come on. Yes, now it is running. IPA. If I grep Docker, right? So here you can see that the network was this, right? And we have this for one. If I'll do the same thing for two, right? So probably it should be 703. You can see 17.0.3, right? So when you use a bridge network, right? So what will happen is there is a internal embedded DNS gonna run, which Docker manage itself, right? We don't manage anything, and that will be internally, right? And always it will run on 172 127.0.0.11. That is the IP address of the internal DNS for net Docker. So let me try to ping. Okay, I think ping will not find by default, but let's give a try. Exec-it, and I will say one, and I will launch bin bash. Okay. Okay, there is no ping command. That's what expected. Yeah, see, why? Because that was the purpose, right? If you, because ping is something that it's not required for every instance to be, right? Unnecessary, you are creating one more layer on top of Ubuntu, which will again increase the size of your image. So that is why we are just collecting or packaging only the required stuff to run for your, right? It is a base image, so obviously it will just have only those things which should require to run a Ubuntu OS, right? So ping is not there. So what we will do is we will install a ping here, right? So we just refresh our source list, and I'm gonna install, I think, let's say ping. Okay, ping has no installation. Okay, it is giving us suggestion, right? We can use this packages because ping is a kind of package which comes with this utility. So it is IP utils hyphen ping. Okay, let me say yes. It will gonna install. Okay, this time we have ping. Yes, we have, and let's try ping 2. Why? Because it is ping 2 is something that the container name we are giving, right? So what we can do is let me exit again and let me run docker ps, right? I will execute that command from outside. Okay, one and ping, and I will give the container ID this time. Let's see it will work or not. Okay, it is not running because we need to give the IP. So embedded network, right, which I'm gonna talking about, that will work only for the custom defined. I'll show you one more thing, but this time what I will do is, if you remember that IP was 172.17.0.3, and here you can see, because we are sitting in the same network and we can ping to each other, right? But with the name and ID, why we are not, it is not able to ping? Because the embedded DNS will work only for the custom network. It will not work for the default bridge network. Fine. So what I will do is I will create one uh, network, right, for our Docker network create. Okay. Let's say I'm not specifying any of the driver as of now. By default, it will the bridge. If you want to create in different bridge, so what you can do is you can specify that driver name. Remember the in source system info, we have seen that IP, VLAN, MAC VLAN, or overlay, like that you can define, right? But if you don't specify, it will again go to the bridge, right? And one more thing, if you wanted to say that subnet, right, you can define that subnet range here, 10.0 0 0/16. Okay, let's take the subnet as an example, and I will say custom network. Fine. Now if I'll do docker network ls, you can see that. And if you want to do what wanted to see another information for this, right, what you can do is again the same command, custom network inspect, and the network name. So here you can see that it is a driver is using a bridge, right? And it has a driver is default and the configuration subnet is this. So whatever the IP container will attach to this network, they will gonna get the IP from this subnet. Fine. So let's take one more example here. Docker run hyphen itd. Okay. Uh, Fine. And I will name it C1. Okay. And Ubuntu. I think we are, yeah, network we need to specify obviously. Network equal to custom underscore network, and then we can specify our image. Fine. And let's create one more. And this time we will try to ping with the name. Okay. So here you can see we have the two more container. Let me show you that IP on one of the this one. So here you can see that this time we are getting the IP from 10. Earlier it was from 172. Fine. So let's log in and install what we call ping utility. Okay. Bin bash. I am in. I am refreshing our source list, and it's almost done. Now let's install apt-get install. If you remember, it was iputils-ping, I think. Yes, fine. And let's try to ping C2. So if you remember, earlier it was not working, right? I'll show you. Exit. See, we have Docker PS and ping utility is uh, installed on this container, which is attached to the bridge network, and on this container, which is attached to the custom network, right? So let me do one more time, hyphen IT and one ping 2. So it is not giving. And if I'll try to ping with the uh, container ID is this one, right? With this also it is not pinging. And if I'll try with IP, obviously it is working, right? Same thing if we'll do with the custom network container, right, which was C1, and I will try to ping C2. Here I haven't done anything, right? And it is going through with the name of that container. Why? Because this it is using the embedded DNS service, right? So embedded DNS service always works with the custom network. Always keep in mind, right? So this way you can do it. And yeah, I think that's it for today. Okay then. I hope you like the content for today. So please subscribe my channel and share it with your friends, colleagues, and more. So we will see what we can cover in. I think Docker file is the next topic in our next video, and then we'll see that how we can achieve it. All right. So yeah, thank you for today. Thank you. Bye bye.